Good afternoon. I think I'm the last one, am I? So I'm sort of standing in between yourself and your 7 o'clock wine. So it's I try to be very fast and unclear. So what is Häggblom Partners? It's a company which is a mother company of several companies in M&A jointly with the United Bankers, which I also partly own. We are number one in forest industry M&A in terms of transactions. We also own majority of Vision Hunters, which is a consulting company, again, only forestry and forest industry. And then through various vehicles, altogether 8 vehicles, either funds or direct investments, we manage forests in different parts of the world in excess of 1 billion euros assets under management. In addition to that, we have an investing arm where we invest in circular economy type of companies and startups or young companies. So for me, this is more like a forest slush. I'm listening to you, trying to learn which are the companies who could become our future cooperation partners. Several of you are already my clients and very respected and good service providers. So I have to take a little bit different viewpoint. I do not want to talk so much about technology. I want to talk about the trends, how I see them, and walk through this presentation with you in 15 minutes or so. Do I have 15 minutes? Okay. So first, talking a little bit about carbon dioxide, like everybody here has been talking about, I assume. So I will be talking about that as well. I'm going to talk about the new normal in wood supply. The new normal is very interesting from the point of view that now we have so much demand for wood that we have never had a situation like that in our history before. A little bit about timberland markets, particularly talking about the Baltic Rim and how the timberland markets are developing. Of course, digital opportunities and challenges in our industry. And last one, a couple of final words. In terms of CO2, the problem is that we are not ambitious enough with our calculation models. We do not take into account the whole picture. We do not calculate the carbon leak, for example, accurately. We do not take into account sufficiently well the carbon emissions in the different technologies. And as some of you, particularly Petteri, I know that he knows very well that there are big differences between, for example, pulp mills in Finland and Russia in terms of carbon dioxide emissions. If in Finland the average is 59 kilos per ton of pulp, in Russia it's 5 times as much. So the technology impact is quite significant. In addition to that, when you have modern technology, it is much more cost efficient to improve that technology, whereas if you have old technology, it will be a massive challenge to change the whole mill concept and configuration. So if we take, for example, the worst case, if we produce wood here in Finland and shut down a pulp mill, and that moves to Indonesia, where, for example, in Sumatra, that is wood is very much grown on peatlands. It will have a huge negative impact on carbon dioxide balance. We often forget that when you are working in a growing business, the products are produced somewhere. And from technology point of view, Finland is a good place to continue producing forest products efficiently and with the lowest possible carbon emissions. The forest growth, climate change has impacted forest growth already in some parts of the world. Here in Finland, we of course know that it has had a positive impact in terms of forest growth. In other regions, the impact has been much less. But here we have suddenly found out that in, for example, northern Ostrobothnia, we have very high growth rates, which we couldn't even imagine 10 years ago. It's a very short period of time. Of course, it's a little bit alarming as well, but at the same time, part of the reason is that our growth models have been outdated, but now they have been corrected, at least to a certain extent. The new normal is affected by the climate change. Forest management becomes more and more demanding. You have to have active forest management. You have to take care of biodiversity, efficient production of wood, fire protection, protection against insects. It is becoming a more challenging task. Here in this country, we have succeeded very well, partly because of a little bit colder climate, but also because of a very long tradition. And if you compare, for example, the forest fires, 2 years ago, we didn't have very many. The biggest one was actually imported from Russia. Whereas in Sweden, there was a serious problem because of forest fires. We have such a good forestry infrastructure in our country that we could prevent the fires before they started expanding. And as you know, if you come too late, it doesn't even if Putin sends his helicopters and aircraft to trying to take control of the forest fires, it doesn't help. It becomes only a bigger sauna. And whereas if we are here in the countryside and we see it early, we can actually stop the fires early enough. We know that, for example, if you think about insect damages, this is very interesting that suddenly we have huge damages in Central Europe. We have that already in southern Sweden. Some of my friends are very worried about old spruce forests in Sweden. You know, everybody says that it's good for climate change to continue growing trees for long. But the trees may have a different opinion. They become old, they become less resistant, and you will see that what is going on at the moment in southern Sweden, it's really alarming, and very many private forest owners are extremely worried. So active forest management is still very much a key to succeed in this changing world. Well, there's one thing which I just wanted to point out here is that more and more fibers are needed in the future. We are substituting many things with fibers. Plastics is, of course, obviously one, but there are other things we are substituting. Cotton with pulp, textile pulp. We are substituting a lot of oil-based materials with fibers. It doesn't even, you know, if you start calculating how much potential there is for fibers in terms of substitution, the equation becomes totally impossible. We do not have enough fibers to take care of substituting competing raw materials. This is a big opportunity for forest industry if we find the areas where forest industry can competitively and profitably substitute. It's quite interesting that if you take plastics and how much plastic is wasted, China is #1. EU as a total, all the EU countries, if you list the countries in a ranking order, EU is number 28. So, you know, a huge problem particularly in Asia, becoming a huge problem also in many African countries. Fiber can also be a solution for that problem. This is the reason why, for example, we and Swedes have built a lot of pulp capacity. There are, you know, all the pulp mills have expanded their capacity. There are new pulp mills coming. Metsä Group's Äänekoski pulp mill was started up the summer before, and there will be still new capacity coming on stream. How many, nobody knows, but the opportunity from market point of view is very good. People say that it's a low value added product. I mean, it's an intermediate product. If somebody wants to produce higher value added products based on pulp, welcome here to Finland. Well, looking at the current strikes, I would say probably no. But in general, it's not forest industry which is making the mistake. It's the country. The country should be the one who would be able to attract investments. However, the main point is that we are able to produce intermediate products at a very quality competitive and cost competitive level. Well, we have been involved in many transactions. Some years ago, what we were doing was restructuring mechanical wood industry. We were working very much with packaging transactions. Last 18 months, it has been very much forestry. A lot of big transactions in the Baltic Rim. And it's a very interesting trend. There is a lack of wood, and particularly the Swedish companies have seen that it is an opportunity to acquire timberland in the Baltic Rim area in order to have a long-term security of wood supply for their growing industry. This I skipped. Paperless office. I remember when we started talking about paperless office, that was when I was a kid. And it has not happened yet, except in one place, in forest. You go to any of the harvesters in Finnish forests, and that's the paperless office. It's not in the high-rise buildings, but it's in the forest. It is very interesting to note that in terms of technology, we are extremely advanced in Finnish forestry. I would rank ourselves humbly as #1. And I also believe that this is going to continue. We have all the means for efficient forest management, just-in-time deliveries. We can be very much customer-driven and so forth and so forth. All the big companies here in this country, they have their AI strategies. They know what they're doing with AI. They are implementing AI, of course, not only in forest, but also in their mills. So, big opportunity for everybody. Better eat lunch than be lunch. That's normally how I end my presentation. And what it means is that a lot of things are happening at the moment. Things which are positive and things which we don't exactly understand how they will impact our future. We have never had such a good demand for our products in forest industry. We have huge opportunities in substituting plastics, which is a huge environmental problem. We have a huge opportunity to sequester carbon. But at the same time, many question marks. We don't know what the regulations will mean in practice. We don't know how that will impact our cost position. Are we doing something that improves the competitiveness of industries in other places of the world where they do not take care of environmental protection, carbon sequestration the same way as we do? So our risk in the past was that we have to become international. We have to compete against the Chinese, US producers, become very cost competitive. We have to be able to develop new products. We have to become more and more cost efficient. Now our biggest risk is bureaucrats. So suddenly the biggest unknown, the biggest disruptor is bureaucracy, which we don't understand. With these kind of words, I'm glad that I was able to be here. I definitely will go through all the presentations which have been held here today. Very important that we have this kind of a forum where we can exchange opinions, and I hope that this kind of forest slush will continue. Thank you.